Candidates are super savvy these days. They're not settling. They know what they want and they know what they're listening for because there's so much information out there and people are sharing ideas, sharing experiences. They're really listening with it intently.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenley, and welcome to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we have an amazing interview ahead of us, but before we get into that, I just want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show. Sometimes we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space, and they're going to teach you how to do something that they do that's helped them be successful. Other days we cover trending topics, items that recruiters are talking about or will be very soon, and what those mean for them. Every Tuesday, come on by for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that you can start layering in your day-to-day today. Once in a while, we open up for Q&A. Listeners can drop in questions that they'd like to hear us take on. Send those over to us at podcast@loxo.co. And lastly, Matt drops by every once in a while for a mic drop episode where he shares something that he's been thinking about within the recruitment space and things you need to know. All right, enough for the preamble. Today, we have one, but not two, incredible guests joining us for a conversation. And why I'm really excited about this conversation is because one of the most impactful things you could do to contribute to an organization's success is to maintain a very high bar when you're growing a team. But what happens when you start to hit hypergrowth? What happens when you have an unplanned departure? What happens with any other scenario that leaves you scrambling to try to fill roles quickly? Well, usually it's one of two things. You get lucky and you find an incredible candidate who just happened to be looking and stumble across your job posting and apply, or you compromise and they're good enough becomes the justification you roll with. But what if we said you could change option one from being lucked to a very planned methodology? And that's why I'm excited for today's conversation as we have Tim Farrelly, co-founder and co-CEO of Coit Group, and Tim Gorewich, recruitment lead at Coit Group, joining us to share how they solved for this exact problem. So with that, I'm excited to have you two here. And Tim, if you want to share a little bit about you all and what you're up to before we dive into the conversation.
Thank you, Sam. Really appreciate the intro. Super excited to be here. I'm Tim Farrelly, one of the co-founders of the Coit Group. Coit is a tech recruitment firm located here in San Francisco for the past 23 years. During that time, we've been heavily entrenched in the technology industry and have been fortunate enough to have strong partnerships with some of the tier one venture capitalists here in Silicon Valley. All the majors, Sequoia Capital, Greylock, Andreessen Horowitz, Norwest, and others. And what that really means is that we're on the short list. So as they make investments into their portfolio companies, they'll bring us in at various stages of their growth. Could be early stage, couple founders, handful of engineers, just got 5 to 10 million, got to hire 20 people overnight. Could be more mature company, Series C, Series D company, where their product has found its market fit. They've just raised a large round of funding, and now it's time to step on the gas and go to market, and that's where Coit comes in. So our model is a little bit different. We do recruitment process outsourcing. So first, we're like, you think of us as like the Accenture or Deloitte of the recruiting industry. First, we're going to come in, do a deep dive on their talent acquisition process. And based off that discovery, we'll have identified their strengths and weaknesses. And from there, we put together custom solutions on what we feel is the best way forward. We'll then come back, present that to the C-suite. Once we get buy-in from the C-suite, we then roll out our delivery teams who are then attached to those engagements for a given period of time. Table stakes minimum would be 6 months. Our longest engagement went on for 6 years. We took that company from 35 people to over 1,800 people. They got acquired for billions of dollars and everything in between. And then while our delivery teams are attached to those engagements, they actually assume the persona of being one of our clients' employees. So they're branded that way on LinkedIn. They're in our clients' email alias, applicant tracking systems. Any other tools they use, we'll ramp up on. Plus, we've got an amazing tool set ourselves that consists of AI technology, scheduling technology, and other tools. So essentially, if anybody has a digital footprint, our teams have the ability to be able to identify them, message them, and start that dialogue about about the opportunity we had in mind for them. And just the process itself creates a lot of efficiencies, because our teams are only telling one story 40 hours a week, as opposed to juggling 10 different clients and throwing paper against the wall to see what sticks. That is not us, and that's why we're here today, to talk about our methods, why we're different, and why senior management loves us, because we've come in and we identify all those blind spots. So yeah, that's why our clients love us, because we really have their back. We've got their blind spots covered, and we can have those hard conversations with them that oftentimes their employees don't want to have with them, because they're fear of retribution, or looking like that whoever their leader is doesn't have that blind spot covered, and so they want that out. Where we can have those just frank conversations, and it's like refreshing for them. And then it's not just a conversation, here's your problem. It's like, here's your problem and here's your solution, and we're going to execute against that. Do you have buy-in? Okay, and sometimes it's not 100% buy-in. Sometimes it's like, I like 80% of your idea, but this is really core to our culture, and so we have to keep this, but let's work around it. So we're very flexible that way. But at least we've made our clients 80% better because of that conversation that they might not have never had with their internal employees. We in October 2020, October 1st, 2020, Coit was acquired by Hudson RPO. We did so for many reasons. First being, their business model was almost identical to ours. However, if you read their case studies pre-acquisition, they had their specialties were financial services, life sciences, biotech, CPG, food and beverage. But the big glaring hole was the tech industry, and that's where we came in and have a seat at the senior leadership table globally. It was also like really clear looking at the management team structure, and we were all like-minded individuals, and it was like clear if we came together, we were going to enjoy a 1 + 1 = 3 type of scenario. And sometimes 1 + 1 = 5. It's just been a smash success. We couldn't be more thrilled with the partnership. Now we're able to take all those relationships we had, really on a domestic and North America level, and really spread them out worldwide, and use the Hudson global footprint, which is 1,500 employees globally, 26 entities around the world, and really be able to help a client such as like a PayPal go not only help them here domestically, but if they need to do a team build of 250 in Singapore, we got them covered. And those are the type of solutions that we knew if we came together would happen, which they have. And so yeah, and it's and we've been able to increase our footprint into Canada and get great guys like Tim Gorewich on our team, and who's made such an amazing impact for us, and consider him a integral member of our team. And Tim, I'll let you take it away, and just you do a quick intro as well.
Thanks, Tim. I started with Coit Group. I guess what are we on now? Second year. We're into the second year. But yeah, 2.5 years. Anyways, I met Tim and his partner Joe Bellumni. And it seemed like a great fit. There was a lot of, alignment just in terms of, I think in our, when I first met Tim, we were talking about Lou Adler, certain methodologies and, best practices. It was just like, all jokes. We talked about the Giants as well. But, it's been great. And the way that Coit operates from a leadership perspective, they're interested in what everybody has to say, what everybody's learning. We have focus groups We share stories. We talk about wins, losses, missteps, which are worth their weight in gold, right? With what we do with those. So, that leads us, into, current day. I think this is third or fourth account where I've been running what we're about to talk about, Method by Coit. And it's just, it's very sort of in tune with the way, our mindset at Coit and the way we operate, and we don't waste anything, right? Whether it's a win story or sort of, like I said, a misstep. That's our background, right? So, and I've led teams for, multinational staffing agencies. I've worked for solution companies, and then the timing fit in 2020, and that's when I met Tim and Joe at Coit Group, and it's been great ever since. Yeah, it's been a great run.
I love it. Well, I'm excited for this conversation, and the two of you unknowingly have teed me up for two of the questions that I did want to get to over the course of this. So, one, you mentioned PayPal. I do have a question there. And then the other one is talking a little bit about how you get this framework really, really in place, and the missteps along the way, that they are as valuable often as the successes are. So to start at the top, before our conversation, I was reading some of the case studies, and one of them that jumped out was PayPal. I mean, it's a big name and everything else. And so this study was talking about how the SVP of engineering there was trying to make some critical hires when their previous recruiting partner wasn't delivering quickly enough. And so at a time when, like, this is literally money, they were trying to have, like, their money, what was it? The digital wallet was what they were working on with that product, so to speak. So they were literally, time is money in that aspect.
It was the Venmo acquisition, and based off of their projections, if they didn't get their products out the door, then the stock price was going to suffer. Their current provider wasn't delivering, and it was also, in the bigger companies, it becomes like a very opaque process, because it's like you have procurement in the middle, you have, so many different players, where then that end SVP is at the board meeting with the board of directors, and like, no way am I going to be able to deliver because I don't have the people to deliver on it. And so we had supported him before, gentleman by the name of Mike Cahill, and he got the permission to bring us in, and kind of through procurement, and we got in there probably in 3 months. It took us, where it would usually take a company to get on the master vendor list, 3 years type of thing. Came in, over delivered. Next thing you knew, his team was like right sized in that situation. So we're on the master vendor list. We kick off. We roll out our delivery team. Month 2, they're already making, they're exceeding their quota or their KPIs in terms of, not only submissions, but actually, importantly, quality candidates in the seats, type of thing. And so that, month after month, as we were over delivering, word started happening, through procurement. Now you've got sales with their hands up. They're not going to be able to meet their goals. So we've got, sales. Next thing you know, we're talking about Argentina. Like, can we set up an entity in Argentina and hire 250 people down there? Yes, we can, and so this is the type of partnerships that we do. And then, hey, by the way, can you help us in Singapore? Yeah, we have a huge team in Singapore, and you can use that entity there. And guess what? It's not 3 months before we get started. It's 2 weeks before we get started. So it's like that really on-demand delivery of these high quality, consultants that we come in and we bring them in, and they go through a rigorous, interview process, and they're tested for, IQ, they're tested for EQ, they're tested for, just their personality base of how well they're going to be suited for the job. And what that does for us is it makes it so we have very low attrition, because everybody is like very like-minded. And as Tim G likes to say, we hire for a type, right? And it's got to have those components. Everybody at Coit, they're genuinely intelligent. Again, we test them because on-the-job interviews are often bad predictors of on-the-job performance. So we also, again, they go through 3 to 4 steps. So everybody's got, and then in that they're being tested if they're articulate, do they have superior writing skills, and do they have hustle? If they've got those 3 things, we've got a platform for them to plug into and have a really successful career and work with literally some of the smartest people in the world. And so again, we have low attrition, low churn. So which is really nice for our clients and why they stick with us for 3 to 4 years, because those hiring managers, our teams are essentially part of their team. And, from the outside looking in, you wouldn't even know that they're a part of Coit or Hudson, RPO, that they're really part of our clients' teams.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what I appreciate the most about it is that it's not on whether it's a per client, per team, per instance basis, throwing a bunch of paper at the wall and seeing what sticks. You have a proven playbook that works, that's scalable, that the team is vetted to truly understand. And slight tangent, but there was a quote in there that said, whereas PayPal's previous recruiting partner had focused on inbound, slogging through the bottom 20% of candidates, we flipped the script to focus on the top 20%, initiating an aggressive outbound strategy to find the right people rapidly. I think that's something that so many people, I don't want to say struggle with today, but inbound that's admin work. It's not recruiting really. And I think that's the difference between some of the top organizations partners like you all is if you want the top talent, the great fits, the people are really going to help grow your organization, they're usually not going and trying to find you on Indeed, sifting through job postings. They're happy where they're at. They're valued where they're at. You have to go after them. And that's where it's not easy, and why I'm really excited to talk about the method framework that you all have built, because there's like 2 incredible things happening here at once that I think lead to a lot of the success that you all see. So tell me a little bit more about the framework itself.
Yeah. So basically, it's an operating framework. The technical definition, right? It's a way for us to really facilitate collaboration, accountability, visibility, creating more alignment, right, between recruitment teams and our client partners, right? That's part of the conversation, the big conversation that we don't focus on a whole lot. It's the client side, right? Podcasts like Luxo, other publications, just a wealth of information. And, I'll speak for many recruiters, most, I would say, information junkies. We're always seeking out the latest, greatest, insights and whatnot. In this sense, you need to have that stuff, right? You need to be able to go out to market, to do your due diligence and recruit in top form to find those great candidates. But on the other side, we come back, it's still the client that has to make the decision. So what method is, like I said, it's an operating framework, it's an open framework, right? We structure things in a way where we can work collaboratively with the client, to understand exactly what it is, the nuances, of their team, right? Of where they are as a company in their journey, right? What's going to make sense for them? What challenges do they have? What are the roadblocks? Sometimes we even get into politics, but what happens is, we end up with a wealth of information that helps us go back to the talent market and really give candidates today what they need to know, right? We need to be able to give them an indication. What is the culture like, right? And we can, we're talking to candidates. You can say sort of the canned things, what they want to hear, but candidates are super savvy these days. They're not settling. They know what they want and they know what to listen for, right? Because there's so much information out there, and people are sharing ideas, sharing experiences. They're really listening with it, intently, right, for certain indicators. So what we do is, we have built this system and it's stage setting, right? So when we start with a client partner, we'll meet with leadership. We'll really begin to understand, again, where they are as a company in their journey, their values, right? You know, exactly, what it is about the culture that makes them different. What's their mission, right? From there, we're working with leadership, we're working with marketing. We want to understand, how they want to be presented outward. What's that objective about, right? And what does that look like for them in their vision, right? As an employer, we're working with HR to understand certain challenges and, the mechanics of it all, right? And the way things need to work. That sets the stage for our team to go in and meet with specific hiring teams and hiring managers, right? The whole foundation of method is, the premise is convenience. The premise is, not taking them for granted, or making any, assumptions that they've got it all figured out. There's a lot of pressure, right, involved in making the right hire. Yeah, the wrong hire is extremely costly, right? To go back and rehire, it costs your team, time, puts projects behind. We understand that, right? So what we do through method is we create channels, we create tools, platforms for visibility, right? For convenience, some of the concerns with hiring teams is how much time they hear about this concept method, and they say, well, how much is required on our side to invest to fully jump into this thing. And the fact of the matter is, it runs in the background, right? It's the underpinning, right? It's the underpinning that holds everything up, and it actually allows us to open the framework up for real collaboration, true partnership, right? We bring the hiring teams into, creating rubrics and scorecards. The candidates are going to be working with these teams. We want to know what's important to them. What questions are they going to be asking? What do they need to know about this person to make a proper assessment, right? So again, when I say open framework, it means we structure the process to a point, right? It's again, it's the underpinning, it's the foundation, but we want to encourage open, candid, collaborative communication. They own the process as much as we do. We shape it and we stick to it. There's certain things that are non-negotiable, but that's on the structure, right? Like the house, the structure of the house, inside, the furniture, the paint, that belongs to the client, right? We would just want to know how to best represent, right? So in terms of the framework, the process, what would you like to know specifically? Or I don't want to, jump in one direction over the other.
Yeah. No, this is so interesting to hear you talk about, because it is, you all are showing the level of depth that you go to within an organization. And I think that in and of itself is a massive takeaway for people. I mean, the amount of collaboration you do, it's not just with the hiring manager, what to understand HR, marketing, sales, customer success. You're truly getting a lay of the land with the company, and not just saying it's a great culture, they have a ping pong table, and assuming that that's going to attract people.
Yeah, and I think, do you think it would be helpful to see just kind of a diagram of how we think this through and how we come into engagements?
Essentially, those are the steps. We come into an account, work with a client, new client. That's primary, right? We want to understand, how the company came to be, what the mission is, the values. Again, that's going to come from leadership, right? Vision's going to come from leadership. Then we're going to talk about EVP with marketing, right? And how we're going to, the brand as an employer. And then again, the nuts and bolts from HR. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to work with marketing and customize job descriptions. Right. We want everything to be succinct with their brand, right, and their vision, and not just company logos or whatnot, but the way it presents, right. Even the typeface is under consideration, right, and font size. You know, From there, we create intake documents. Okay, so intake form, and there's the visual there. The intake form is, that's where everything happens. I say form. I use that term loosely. It's sort of like a conversation guide, right? And we go through, obviously, the housekeeping components of it, but we get into things about something that's unique to Coit. We call it segmented EVP, right? Typically, from the C level, we'll get the roots of the EVP, of the employer value proposition. Why would a top performer want to come and work for this company? That's typically going to come from marketing as well as leadership. But segmented EVP is different. It gets a little deeper, gets a little more personal, and a wealth of information and insight and understanding comes from it, where we will talk to the hiring manager and we'll say, we'll just rephrase the question: why would a top performer want to come and work for your team within this company? What is it about the team? And then we start learning about the team. And this individual is now talking about the folks, that make up this particular team. Sometimes, if it's sort of a shorter answer or whatnot, they don't go into as much detail, or if they struggle, I'll rephrase it. I'll pose it a different way. I'll say, why was it the right place for you? Right. And that kind of gets them back on their heels a little bit in a good way, because what comes from that, now it's personal and they're going on record, right? This is a public centralized document that everyone's going to be able to see. So it's a thoughtful answer. And, we really get, an amazing story most of the time, because they're recounting, and they weren't prepared to answer that, right? So you get a genuine response. To go to a candidate on the market and to engage with a candidate, and when they're asking questions, and I tell the hiring manager, I said, this is great, I'm going to quote you, right? To be able to quote the manager, the person that this candidate potentially would be reporting to at that stage, it's a powerful thing, right? And that's where it's either going to be a hit or a miss, right? But it's an honest account, right? So if you're moving forward on good things, right? Because someone feels that connection, either to the team or the sentiments shared by the hiring manager. There's a connection made there. So the intake process, really, it's not your typical two-party Q&A, right? We're not looking for a laundry list of must-have skills or whatnot. We're really digging in. We're digging into the culture, right? We're digging into the team and what's priority to them and what's important to that specific team, right?
And I think that's sorry, Tim, and a great point. Just, Sam, our teams are like, the reason why we have to dig in is leadership's making a big investment in this partnership, and it's a true partnership. So like Tim said, it's not a laundry list. It's like, we really need to know the internals of that, because our teams are very much like a PR agency for our clients in the talent community, right? We've got to go out there and tap everybody on the shoulder that has that particular skill set and tell the same story every time, because that's what the source of truth is. And then it starts, percolating within that group of candidates that have that skill set. and then they start referring candidates in, even if they didn't get the job, or it did, they weren't interested, commute was too long, whatever. They want to give 3 other opportunities because they were so impressed by the experience, and and the opportunity that most of the market doesn't know, but that we know because we are an extended member of their team, inside with them. We're embedded, right? Just like an employee would be. So
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, you have to make them appealing because, again, these are the top 20% of people you're going after. You have to make them want to come to you. They don't know about the culture. And if you're just going to share some vague statements about, have unlimited PTO or some of those things, like that's not going to attract those types of people. And that's where, Tim G, to your point, you have to get those authentic statements and quotes so they can really understand what it's like to work
so
there.
you're 2 things are happening during that intake process when you're asking that kind of, or that line of questioning, is you're coming away with what you really need to impact today's savvy job seeking market. Like I said, we're so super aware right now of culture and what good culture is, and what we're not looking for, right? And they're listening, and they're looking for that stuff. So when you're able to come and give insight on that level, they're really appreciative. There's a trust that starts to form at that point with the candidate. But on the hiring team or hiring manager side, there's a trust forming as well, because they're divulging certain things. They're making comments about their team, about themselves, about the company that they joined and the reasons for joining. They're trusting you with that information, right, to handle it in the right way. They're also saying to themselves, okay, well, they just asked me that. They really want to know. They really want to know. And what happens is, by the time you finish that call, that hiring manager's really, curious as to who you're going to put forward, given the fact that all of this, right? And you wanted to know this, and you asked those questions because that's important to your search, right? That's important. Yeah.
and then all of a sudden the whole script changes, right? Where they were displeased with their previous recruiting process to, hey, now a Coit recruiter by method is sending a resume, and they're in the middle of a board meeting, and they stop their presentation to look at the resume with the whole board members, which has happened several times over the years. And that's an important thing, right? And then they all analyze it together, and it's like, after 2 to 3 submissions, they're talking to 95% of the candidates were submitted because we are so calibrated, we are so embedded with them, and we know them, right? We know what they like because we're that in touch with them. We're almost like corporate therapists in some ways too, because we've come in and they had a broken process, and now we're the disruptors of that broken process to create that source of truth, and that everybody's aligned across teams, segmented, but the whole organization as well. And that's where they get the true value of method.
Yeah, it's a great place to be in. I mean, the number of times I've heard from recruiters at agencies where they're like, I sent over 10 applicants, 10 candidates, and I never heard back from the hiring manager, to I'm going to stop this board meeting and share it with the members within this meeting. That's a huge testament to just how impactful the framework is and what it does for the organizations.
Right. And there's a co-ownership over the process. We're providing structure, right? Certainly, we're guiding, that part of the process. We're guiding the intake or whatnot. But what comes from it, really, the hiring manager feels an ownership, right? When the intake, the information is shared with the rest of the hiring team, okay, and we start to create rubrics, we start to create scorecards. What we'll do is we'll set up a a communication platform, whatever our client or our client partner is using, whether it's Google Teams, or Google Meet rather, or Teams or Slack, even SharePoint. It doesn't matter, as long as everyone has access to it. We'll figure out the best way to present and share documents and share exchanges. But we set up these channels, these chatter channels, in addition to the ATS, right, that we're using. We're storing obviously everything in ATS and capturing, but it's the day-to-day, right? The conversations, updates, whatever it is, we're doing it through one channel, and that channel, we've got bridges out to, whatever document depository, which houses JDs, which houses intake. So the point is, everything is accessible, visible. I set, editing privileges as open. We want everybody contributing to this thing, everybody to see. Right. And, so the hiring manager will know that, this is visible from leadership to, to his team, everybody in between. And so, the words are weighted. And if someone has, a comment to make, or maybe a criticism or whatnot, it happens. It happens before we go to market. Right. So we're establishing all that, up front. Right, we're having those conversations up front, right, and that's a true partnership model.
Absolutely. And it also creates, like, nobody likes surprises, right? Everybody's okay with bad news, but nobody likes surprises. And when you establish all of this up front, it creates that trust, and it creates, like, I'm not going to be surprised because I know everything is covered. We're going to follow this framework, and if you trust the process, it'll bring you to the truth, and the truth will, of what we evangelize by our method and our methodology.
Yeah, this is incredible. I'm so glad that y'all could share some of this with us, as it brings us right up to the hour. We might just have to do a part 2 with you all sometime to go another level deeper on it. But I truly appreciate you two joining us to bring us through this. I know that it's going to give a lot of our listeners, recruiters, a new perspective on how they might want to think about their approach to not just recruiting, but how they embed themselves with organizations, other steps that they can do to become more effective. So this was great. I'm so appreciative, as I said, that you two could join us for this. And so that's going to wrap up the conversation. But before we do jump, any helpful resources, any places that you'd want people to go to learn a little bit more about Coit or the framework?
For any client that's listening out there, hello@coitgroup.com is a good place to reach us, and it gets you out to the entire senior leadership team, and the appropriate person will get back to you. And sure, we're always looking for talented recruiters to join our team as well. And so we want to, have that community, because again, when a client engages with us, we want to start, rolling out within 2 weeks. And so we have a great community of very smart recruiters, and we're going to give you a career skill set that you'll be able to take with you for the rest of your career. So.
I love it. Well, thank you both again for joining, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. So everyone, that is another episode of Becoming a Hiring Machine. See y'all soon.
Cheers.